Now, leaking culture is something that at the moment I'm on a little bit of a crusade against. I want to sort of expose what these people are like, and actually that so many times that they might even appear to be right. They didn't know what was going to happen then. That was a guess or a rumour. It was unconfirmed. Sometimes at the time it wasn't going to happen, and then maybe sometimes it did happen. They get to take credit for that and go, see, he's right. And then people actually use all sorts of weird cognitive dissonance, like, but he's not wrong all the time, but sometimes it did happen. But hey man, it's just leaking, it's not journalism. So there's all this weird nonsense going around, because let's be real, people get off on the dopamine spike of getting in gossip that they're not supposed to have. So it doesn't really matter to them if sometimes it's not true, it's nonsense. If anything, they want to know the nonsense rumours that are going around that don't end up happening, that are BS. You get to feel like you're an insider, as we'll find out if some of these people build themselves like, I'm inside the scene, I know what's going on there. So in terms of this leaker culture, right, the first thing to say is it journalism or not, right? It's obviously not journalism in the sense that these people aren't using journalistic methods. They aren't held to journalistic standards. They have no editorial oversight. In fact, there is no accountability at all beyond someone with my status or a voice in the community pointing out they're full of shit, and essentially like some political campaign attempting to dissuade people from listening to them or persuade and use influence to suggest maybe they're full of shit. Aside from that, nothing can stop these people putting their tweets out there, getting loads of Twitter followers, getting likes and engagement, spinning it off into a Telegram group or some sort of like a fucking skins deal or betting deal, doing all that, and then eventually, by the way, probably just skip out entirely, go do some other job in the space or in a different space, or go into football or go into football gambling, or sell the account and have someone switch it up and be selling affiliate link stuff through there. It's always about some little scam at the end. After they've got the little clout and the fame and they get that part of it sorted, then it becomes a little grift, doesn't it? So the problem I have is it's presented as journalism. It looks like journalism. If you don't know about journalism and the standards and the ethics and what's going on behind the scenes, you might even be mistaken for thinking it's journalism. And quite frankly, no matter what they tell you with their little duplicitous words that are fucking sophistry from top to bottom, they are presenting as journalists. They want the status of journalists, and they want to be treated as if what they're saying is not only of value, but it's right, it's correct, and they know what they're talking about. Because that's the problem. When they try this pivot to like, but I'm not a journalist, like people might know the Harumi guy began, it said he was like a journalist and an insider, then it said he was an insider, and then eventually just said he was like a life enjoyer, because the joke is by the end, you couldn't even say he was an insider from how full of shit this guy is. They all want the status though, as though they are Richard Lewis. They are Jacob Wolf. They are. I mean, even people who got it wrong at times on certain other things. Like, Nell might have done that thing with the whole Shiro and the fucking sticker. Yeah, that's fucked up. But that was just a fucked up action Nell took on his Twitter. That wasn't really an active journalism to me. And then, if anything, the bigger issue on the journalism one's just that one where, yes, Nico was apparently going to sign and was interested in the Falcons thing. His problem is he then used language, as you'll see, we'll talk about with the Lakers, which clearly could not be true. And so he couldn't take the L on that one. He has to pretend all of that's the case to this day, as Richard pointed out in his video. And so that's what makes him look silly. But aside from that, Nell's done countless proper reports. So you can go, you could do what I've done here behind the scenes and do your own journalism and find sources and talk to them, and they would verify that he knew what he was talking about and that what he said was accurate. It did happen. Sometimes even if this move didn't come to be, it was a move that was being considered. That's a different class of person. We can get into the whole things with Richard over what they're doing. I'd even say, look, I do think people like Ryan at Push V are a bit fucking on the line. I've seen some bullshit back on that site back in the day. But even then, at least they are writing for websites where in theory there's editorial oversight and there would be some sorts of consequence, and generally they're using their real name and all that jazz that you do need to do as a journalist. So the problem is, look, there are pros and cons to leaking. Like, a pro would be this: since you can't stop it anyway, the info's going to get out there. You'd hope someone could do it in an interesting way, right? In a way where sort of they vet stuff. They let you know, this is sort of like out there. No one really knows if this is true. I didn't really get this from a reliable. So if you did it that way, it'd be sort of cool. It would be like, essentially, by the way, why isn't this just being an insider? Stop pretending to be a journalist. Just have like a column or a Telegram group or a channel where you just in a legit way present the leaks and the rumors that are going on behind the scenes. It doesn't have to be that you're a journalist, you ran it all the way down. Just do it in a way like, hey, view from inside the scene, like, trouble brewing, heroic, you could have said like 2 months ago, but what's going on? It sounds like people from OG might get signed. You could do it that way. You could do it, but they don't want that. They want to get all the props, the engagement, and the fame from being a journalist and this being what they actually know and them being reliable. But then they want to pivot and rizzle dizzle when you catch them and lawyer their way out. Oh, semantically, but I never said it. I just said they seem to be going there and they could be, and they do all this jazz. But here's the problem. What gives it away is the attitude you'll see at the end of this video, where they're always super shitty to people like me and Richard, who they know when they call them out, I call them out for real, and we know that they don't know what they're talking about and can't know the information, and they always wig out. And they always act in a way that's so shitty, they clearly did want you to think they were a journalist, and they did know what they're talking about. Because if they pretend I'm just a leaker, then if I say, well, that's complete bullshit, I've looked at it, you know what you're talking about, you'd go, yeah, could be, I'm just a leaker, I can't know myself, can I? I never claimed it was a journalistic report. Because if you did know, and you did have that info, then you basically have done journalism. Why not take your fucking plaudits? Why not say, I know I can stand on that, it is real journalism, and so actually I did do a piece of journalism there. Exactly. They want their cake and to eat it. And if you don't know what that phrase means, maybe you should educate yourself. So obviously, part of my issue here, it's always what sparks these videos, is that they have to come after me and be shitty to me and imply I don't know anything and I'm not the journalist and I'm full of shit and I'm the one who just makes things up and hates on new people in the scene. I don't think anyone in the history of esports ever helped other people, not only who are new to the scene with talent and actual good attitudes, but even people who were direct competitors to my job, to the extent that, like, for example, in CS right now, hasn't Maui Snake essentially taken my exact job and role in the community? But have I ever held him down? Have I ever tried to block? No, I haven't done that at all. So this notion that, like, me and Richard are just attacking newer people. No, when new people come along that we think are legit, like DK, like people like Lewis Mira back in the day, in the modern day, you could say people like Note, I've had Nero on my shows, M&M's from Dust 2 US. There's a whole bunch of people where we supported them. They haven't been shitty to us. We've actually given them like space in our fucking platforms, introduced them to our communities. It's just nonsense. It's another pivot. You know, it's another deflection away from, is this leaker wrong and or full of shit and or a liar about what he knows? It's always a pivot to like us and what we're doing and who we are and what all the haters and all things we've done. Now, how about let's just keep on track, boys? So I already did this in League of Legends. I went and I got the biggest one there, a guy called Wooloo, because the problem here is this. It's already out of control with that guy. He's already so far gone. He's got tons of Twitter followers. He's been nominated for Esports Journalist of the Year across all esports. He didn't win, but he's nominated. He's had like a proper job working for Upcomer. He's actually put his name out there now. He's even face doxed himself. Like, so all that shit, right? So that guy in theory is legit now. But as I showed, even up to the most recent off-season, he is publishing stuff where it is totally duplicitous. He is breaking confidences. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's working off one source. He is working off an incredibly biased source that is using him as a pawn in a game. Now, Harumi's not even on that fucking level. This guy, like I say, has superseded and transcended the leakers to some degree. But I thought, you know what? Why let it get to that point? Let's just nip this one in the bud right now. Like, I might even do a series, I think, after this, where I get a bunch of other journalists, maybe even some really big name proper journalists who won Journalist of the Year. Because I think it's about time some of these guys got sort of the Frankie Gamer Doc treatment. Like, I'm thinking of doing a series, maybe it'll be called like Sins of the Journalist or something fucking evocative like that. And then I just take these motherfuckers and I just put them in the blender and just show you what they're all about, what they're actually composed of, how full of shit they are, what indeed are they made of, my man. Because one thing I'll say is this, DK came back briefly when I pointed out people like this cunt and Overdrive make me miss DK and just think, fuck, wasn't that guy just really good at his job? Didn't have an ulterior motive at any moment, was in other worlds and could have just exited to do anything else for money. And so he was doing it for all the right reasons. And as a result, he was a mega legit journalist who had an amazing track record. And so he came back and he made his own comment. I thought he made a very poignant, apt remark about these types of leakers. That what really gives away who and what they're doing is when they'll always point out by some method, like, well, what's in it for me? So you'll point out to them like, yeah, but you don't have this info though. You haven't nailed this story down and verified it. And then they'll be like, yeah, but the other leakers have got it too. And so if I don't publish it first, then they're going to publish it. And the implication is, and then they're going to get the clout and the engagement. And so how could I not do that? I must take this incredibly low-hanging fruit and just get it myself because it's about being first, not being right. And that gives away that they never had journalistic standards. And in doing so, you see that it's just about, yeah, but what about me? Well, yeah, but you have to do it the right way. Yeah, but then I might not be the one that benefits. Well, then that's just the case, isn't it? Like, whoever gets to the story for real first can do the real story, and whoever gets to the bullshit one does the bullshit one. Yeah, but if I don't do the bullshit one, it might not be me that's first. What about me? What about my fame? What about my attention? What about the thing that I think I know? What about the info I have? What about what they might do? No, how about, is it right? Is it true? Do you know what you're fucking talking about? Like, what's going on here? So these are people with no shame and no dignity, in my opinion. They're actually fucking outrageous. So let's get into it with ye old fucking Harumi, which is this little cunt who apparently comes from fucking Belarus. He popped up on the internet absolutely out of nowhere, almost as though like there was a concept back in antiquity with like the Greeks where they thought basically that when you would have a corpse, that flies just spawned out of it like it's a video game environment, because they were trying to make sense of the world, right? They didn't use certain scientific methods. They didn't have a microscope back then, did they? So in the same way, it's like Harumi when you just have like the corpse of fucking Overdrive still around just saying any old shite he hears, some of it true, some of it nonsense, some of it in the middle. Who can ever know? Roll the dice. It's Overdrive, baby. When he's doing that, it's like his corpse being there, still around the scene, stinking it up. Meant shitty little Harumi just got attracted in and then started like fucking living downstream of him like some human centipede. Except Harumi is even less reliable, seems to have less information, and sometimes just completely appears to fabricate stories. Whereas, as far as I can tell, Overdrive might just have shit info, might have just heard some bollocks from someone. This guy actually seems himself to fabricate the story. So good news is I went out there and I can actually talk directly to sources, boys. I don't need to go off like the rumour mill. I can just go and find out and then verify from multiple people. Is this true what they're talking about? So I've done it on a bunch of his stories, and I'm going to show you what utter bullshit some of these stories are. So we'll start. We're way back in June here. This is the 19th of June in 2023. Obviously, they're using the old fucking American system there. Someone else took this screenshot, but whatever. It's still the right screenshot. So it says, EG paid $100,000, presumably, for Zorte, the former Force Orpa. And then he goes, Zorte in EG is a settled issue. Only paper questions remain. Now, the problem there, immediately, is these two posts here sort of disagree with each other. Now, I'll give you 5 seconds. Can you figure out why the first tweet doesn't make sense the way it's phrased if the second tweet is also true on the same day? Right, if you guessed, it's because he said they've paid it. He didn't say, like, EG to sign Zorte, EG verbal agreement with Zorte. The second tweet basically says Zorte is going to join EG. Like, it's almost a done deal. They've essentially got a verbal agreement. That's why paper questions remain. But once they sign the contract, then it's done. You pay the buyout, and then he'll be in EG. The problem is the first tweet says EG paid $100,000 for Zorte. Now, by the way, quick thing I'll just get out the way right now. Before anyone goes, yeah, but is it first language is going to be like Russian or Belarusian? It'll be Russian, by the way. It's going to be Russian, so he's speaking. Well, then don't do work in English then, mate. You just do it in Russian and let someone else translate, or let that Google Translate, that's actually pretty decent, translate what you said. Don't use imprecise language, because they're never using imprecise languages. Like I pointed out with the Wulu guy. He's saying paid there because since this hasn't happened, no one else can say EG paid. So when he says they've paid, if someone else goes verbal agreement, but then this guy goes they've paid, then his is spicier news, his is better news, his is more certain news, so he must have the inside track. The problem is, if EG paid the buyout already, then why have they not got the contract signed? Why is that the thing that would be last? So as a result, this is kind of a sus one, right? But what's interesting is he's not totally wrong. It's just like I said, this is an example of how he's presented it, that it's a done deal completely. Now, here's the interesting detail is I've looked into this one. This is actually one I've been sitting on for a while because I was going to potentially use it on some EG angle because obviously fuck EG. You know, they were going to make that team where it was going to be like Zorte and fucking Electronic, like maybe Jax would join. Obviously, Liege was supposed to join instead of going to Call. They were going to make this like sort of Russian mixed with like Jax and then Liege, some like weird super team of names. It actually looked pretty spicy on paper. So it's potentially like Electronic goes there rather than goes to Cloud9, right? Apparently, some of that was the case. But what's hilarious, I heard behind the scenes, is that when they got to the Zorte one, which is like one of the players they were trying to lock down, and then they would get some of the other players and sign all them, supposedly the lawyers, This is how fucking new BG is. Think about this in 2023. Guys, we knew all this when Cloud9 bought the Gambit squad via that Norwegian agency, and then Yukinda had to buy himself out from Virtus.pro and then join Team Liquid. We already knew that there was a thing politically where, because there's supposed to be Western company sanctions, not in esports, against Russian oligarchs and people with connections to Putin, no one's supposed to directly give them money, because the implication is you're actually funding indirectly, but in some kind of a sense, the Russian war effort, aren't you? So people don't want to be paying anything that in any sense is connected to the Russian state, is the logic, right? Well, I heard when the lawyers looked into this move, like everyone inside the team was like, yeah, let's do the move, like, yeah, she's great, like, Jotty, yeah, of course I'll join, like, all these players, like, yeah, interesting, that actually looks like a good lineup, that they've finally figured out, as, by the way, anyone who knows about Forza, this is such a new fucking angle, they found out, like, oh, wait a minute, they're sponsored by Lukoil. But Lukoil has like connections to those fucking oligarchs. Interesting, Carmack and ESL. Is that true? Because if that's true, what the EG lawyers found out, why the fuck was Forza allowed to compete under the name Forza in all these tournaments, but Virtus.pro wasn't even allowed to officially win the major when they no longer were owned by the Russians and they'd been sold by your own acknowledgement that they now can be Virtus.pro? It's weird how that works. It's almost like that was just some bullshit political expediency game that wasn't about what people were doing and what country they're from. It's about punishing a couple of big orgs to make a statement and then not giving a fuck about the little minnows once you got the sharks, right? You had bigger fish to fry, but you weren't about consistency. So what I would say instead is, that's insane. So then supposedly they had to just cancel the deal. Then they went back on all of it. Elise was in call, Electronics in Cloud9. Zorta never did indeed join EG, and EG obviously stick with the NA lineup, but eventually folded, right? It's over. So I've just heard basically, yeah, this move, the key thing is, it was going to happen, but the way he's reported it is what gives away that he either lies and makes things up, or he hears unreliable information that he does not know about and cannot know about. So similarly, then, same month, a day later, he tweets out, OG, the new OG lineup, right? It just says the lineup, by the way. So this isn't like, oh, you know, like they're thinking about, no, this is like OG is Fiku, Regali, Nexa, Cypher, and Jim Hat. Now, if you know OG or any of these players, you know two of those names don't make any sense, do they? Because Jim Hat, he's actually in Mouse, isn't he? Now, he himself said he had interest from OG like a month after this or something in an interview. So apparently behind the scenes, they were talking to Jim Hat. Now, what's hilarious though is Cypher. Cypher's just there in the lineup, boys. Now, what's brilliant about this is, yeah, if you were behind the scenes and you didn't have contacts, that is the sort of name when you look at the teams he was in, Into the Breach, and then he's joined TSM, and then there's rumours maybe now he'll even be signed by a bigger squad. When you look at where he is, that would be a good guess, wasn't it? If you look at that lineup of players, like he had that good run at the major, you look at sort of the roles there, hey, that would actually be a pretty solid addition, right? If you were to have those other four players, Cypher would be a good pickup. The problem is this. In OG, never talked to Cypher, and this move was never happening. It's just complete bullshit. It's completely fabricated that Cypher was joining this team. Never, ever happening. But it's right there in this guy's post. He's just taking shots, putting it out there. I'd love an explanation from him. Why are you putting players that were never being talked to and never going to join the team into the lineup, right? How about this one? Same month, couple of days later, 23rd of June, Hobbit and Buster set to leave Cloud9. Now, you'll obviously know Buster isn't in Cloud9, but Hobbit, well, if you watch any matches, this is in June, by the way, we're in December now. If you've been watching Cloud9 recently, you'll see Hobbit in the server. Sure, sometimes it doesn't look like he's in the server, or he's having a bad time, but Hobbit is indeed in Cloud9. So what the fuck are set to leave Cloud9? It'd be one thing if it was like Cloud9 considering moves. No, this is are set, as in, it's set. Remember what the English language means. Set means the moves are in place now for Hobbit to leave Cloud9. The problem is, when I went and talked to Cloud9, obviously, by the way, Cloud9 have indeed signed Boomich after Shiro has departed the lineup, right? When I went and talked, they told me that they were considering Boomich, but nothing was even remotely close to being done. Now, Boomich did join Cloud9, right? Not instead of Hobbit. But here's the problem. He joined in November. This is in June. So again, just a guy talking out of his arse. Doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's telling you things are set. People have paid money. Here are new lineups. Here's another one. This one's incredible. This might be one of the craziest attempted leaks I've ever seen, because as far as I can tell, it is 100% fabricated and 100% wrong. He manages to simultaneously get completely wrong a lineup that was never happening and say a lineup that does happen wasn't going to happen. This one's amazing. This is like a tier of bullshit I can't even conceive of. 25th of August, roster consisting of Cypher, Inters, Mordor, Jax, Valde, and Extaz, so you will know them as what was announced as the TSM lineup, with as Extaz as coach and Lambert as analyst, signed contracts, not even going to, might be joining, signed contracts with David Beckham's organisation, Guild Esports, TSM out. Now, first of all, the idea they were joining Guild is complete bullshit. Was never happening. Multiple people telling me this is never ever happening. Then consider, so not only that, he hasn't just said like they're going to, they have signed contracts according to him. There are actually contracts that exist in this world with Guild Esports for all of these players. Then it goes TSM out. Now, you will know, no, they joined TSM. These players joined TSM. TSM weren't out. So he simultaneously fucked himself on two ends of this deal. It's so crazy. If he just didn't say TSM out, it would only be like wrong. But now it's twice as wrong because they did indeed go to TSM. Just completely made up information. So this is the 29th of October. And it says, this is when the rumour was Snappy's going to Falcons. He now has gone to Falcons. Ents targets Nexa instead of Snappy. Nexa obviously was in OG. No one knew it was going to happen. This was before he joined G2. Right, here's the thing. This is completely made up, I've heard. Completely made up. Ents wasn't targeting Nexa instead of Snappy. Nexa wasn't trying to join Ents instead. It was all completely made up. And are you ready? That says October 29th. So on the 21st of November, Nexa joined G2, by the way, and stopped being an IGL. Notice there, this moves IGL for IGL, and Nexa doesn't want to be an IGL, as my Stratbook expert pointed out. Then on the 27th of November, also less than a month after this post, Glaive joined Ents. Now, you might go, yeah, but targeting. No, they weren't targeting him. I can tell you right now, they weren't targeting him. It's absolute bollocks. There was more bullshit. Don't worry about that. So here's a good one. This was on the 30th of October. It said, Vitality close to sign Jax. Obviously, they ended up signing Mezzi, didn't they? Apex publicly says, if we don't sign him, you pay me 100,000 euros, thanks. Then shit at Harumi, because this is the other thing. Because it's just about clout and getting attention. Oh my God, I can't believe a famous person talking to me. He always just replies with really stupid comments that aren't ever funny, don't ever vibe with you, and just make him look like an absolute churl and cunt of a human. And he goes, and if sign, you pay? As if there's any chance, by the way, Apex is going to be wrong and is lying, and actually he's going to sign, and so now he's just making sure Apex will pay him 100,000 euros, even though this deal was never happening. So then Apex goes, sign, and then stupid Harumi goes, I'm waiting your BTC address. As though this is ever something plausible. This is what a shit. They can never just take the L. If they were just a leaker, you'd go, who cares? I'm a leaker, mate. Not everything I say can be true or is always right. Thanks for the engagement, fuckface. And then on to the next thing. No. Instead, they always have to pretend like they're legit and like they might be the one that's telling the truth. By the way, don't get me wrong. Pro players will lie plenty of times. They've lied about me. They've even told me publicly, that's a lie. You can't say you left the team like that. Then DM me, look, you know how it was. Like, I just can't say that publicly. But I also don't like that you're putting out there what did happen. It's like, I don't give a fuck what you think, mate. I'll never bow to these people. I'll never back down. I'm right when I do this. These people are just full of shit. They just don't know what they're talking about at all. Now, here's what's mad about this. I've been told up and down this move, Vitality sign Jack's completely fake. It's false. It's fake news. Never happening. And by the way, spoiler, he's still in TSM, unsurprisingly. Now, don't worry though, this is where Harumi does his real work, not just on Twitter that not that many people are on. He has a shitty little fucking Telegram group, doesn't he? So in there you go, he's saying all this bullshit, right? Look, Vitality's going to sign Jax, Ents is minus Snappy plus Nexa. By the way, before it was just they're considering, now they're minus Snappy plus Nexa. By the way, October 29th, like less than a month later, Nexa joined fucking G2, not as IGL, and Glaive's already in Ents. So he's just absolutely full of shit. He just doesn't know what the fuck he is talking about. And then I thought, what's great is, there's one that's not even resolved yet. But what's great is, let's just do the fucking Godzilla meme. Let them fight. Take the two biggest cunts in the scene for leaking, Overdrive, the OG, and then the little shitter new school Harumi. And what's great is they've apparently completely disagreed with each other to the extent that at least one of them is absolutely full of shit, a disgraceful fucking liar pretending to know what he can't, and just completely exposed as a cunt for putting his name behind this. I say at least one. I mean, you got to leave the potential it could be both, right? I'm going to assume in this case, Overdrive is the one who's right. So here's what happened. You had Harumi, December 16th. Spirit paid 1.75 million for Shiro's transfer. By the way, that would be insane. That would just be that might be like the biggest transfer ever for one player. Now you can say, oh, but Spirit could get the money from this one. The other. Now look, I've heard Spirit wants millions for fucking Donk, and it's that kind of a buy. So maybe if you sell Donk, you can do that. But this already sounds like, fuck it, that's a lot. That's sort of like what you'd pay for Simple. And listen, Shiro's amazing, but he ain't Simple. He doesn't have the same fucking impact or name value Simple does. So what's crazy is he's saying there 1.75 million. Now, paid, he's even saying. Not they are going to pay or the fee to buy out Shiro. He's saying that they've actually paid. Again, just like at the beginning of the video, they've paid 1.75 million for this transfer. So what did Overdrive do? Now, I will say, this is translated and it was posted on Reddit, so I can't even technically know if this was Overdrive on his Telegram, but seems plausible, right? At least I actually put out there what I've seen. So it says the cost of the transfer, and remember, he's in theory like part of the fucking staff sort of Spirit is Overdrive, so he should actually know on this one. The cost of the transfer is a little more than $1 million. By the way, Simple even also said that like Lakers were full of shit, implying Harumi. It's worth noting that a price in the region of $1 million is now common for the transfer of players from the top 10. That is true. There are even players who aren't top 10 who that's the sort of money. Right, let's just put both on screen for a second, shall we? So here's my problem, boys. One of these cannot be true. Possible both are not true, by the way. But it is impossible for them both to even vaguely be right while having a number 700,000. I'll say we'll give the 50 as the margin for error. $700,000 apart from each other. So one person is an absolute piece of shit liar who's just a fraud. By the way, either way, imagine Harumi was right. Well, then what the fuck is Overdrive doing publishing a number 700,000 less? If Overdrive's right, then why is Harumi even commenting? He may as well just have actually pulled this number out of his arse and just press send on the internet. Like, what value is there to one of these two fucking reports? One of them is just absolute bollocks. Like, I may as well put a third one and say signed for 50 million. There's another thing these people do. They use very specific language to sound like they have more details or like increased amount of specificity and precision when they're making the post, so they get all the hype. And then later, they'll try and dance and walk that back and ignore details and go, but in Spirit, I was right, ironically. So they would essentially, it's like one of them could go, oh, he signed a 2-year deal. Then one of them goes, he signed a 20-year deal. And then the news comes out like, he signed with the team for 1 year. And then they're both like, see, I was right. He did sign. And it's like, well, one, you said 2-year deal. So you're right in that he signed, but you're wrong in the details. So why are you mentioning wrong things? And the guy with the 20 years, you're so wrong with the details that actually the fact that he signed becomes fairly minor to your story. You've actually like overbalanced it with absolute shit. Like my analogy would be, that's like you did put this much ham into a sandwich, but then you put 90% horse shit. So would you describe that as a ham sandwich or a horse shit sandwich? Exactly. I think we know what type of sandwich you're feeding everyone, right? So that's just a little one that hasn't even been resolved that just shows what an absolute fucking mess this leaker culture is. Then I alluded to it before, but let's just have a little look at the attitude. The Wooloo guy's also a piece of shit to anyone if you ever call him out for being full of shit. But here's a brilliant one, because I've obviously called out a few of these people. I tend to do it more abstractly when it's someone like Harumi, because why do they deserve to get any pop on Twitter and have any other dickhead go, oh my God, this is drama, and you delete poster, follow the account. So I don't tend to quote tweet these guys usually. I do it with Overdrive because it's already known quantity. So if you look into this, when he's having a little battle with Nell, I said, you can't even, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can't even vaguely put Nell and some CIS, now ex-CIS, pleb leaker on the same level. The former is a journalist, Nell. I've already investigated the latter, done it in this video, and found that they used completely made up info with zero factual basis. Showed you in this video. Well, you have to believe me, but I think I've got the credibility, right? I've never lied in my entire professional career. That has been 22 years long that I've been making a living in esports. He just replies, because it's always just some rude shithead little kid angle, goes, will there be any evidence about fabrication information? I mean, here's the thing, dickhead. If you knew how evidentiary standards work and journalistic protocols, you'd know that I cannot show evidence that you were lying. But put it this way, I would just challenge people in those teams to come out and say that I'm incorrect and that actually you were right about players joining those teams. Look, players can lie and they could certainly choose to do that to make me look like a prick. I just suspect that won't be happening, you little fucking pleb. And then he goes, but is that enough to just say, where's the evidence? A guy who, by the way, has never produced one shred of fucking evidence ever for anything he said. That's not how, by the way, the burden of proof works. The burden of proof goes like this. Do you have evidence it happened? If you don't, then you can't say it happened unless you're invoking the idea you're a journalist, in which case your track record the safeguards in place, the notion you are held to a journalistic set of standards and principles, and your credibility over your career and how many times you've been claimed to have lied or shown to be wrong is what makes us believe you without the evidence, in lieu of evidence. Look at what that word means. Quite an interesting one, isn't it? So the idea I'm the one who has to produce the evidence, like, this nonsense thing's happening. No, it isn't. Well, you have to prove that it isn't. Nah, that's not the way it works, actually. It's the other way around. You have to prove it is working. And then he goes, usual petulance, or will you, as usual, right, okay, so this is something I do usually, piss off for no reason and stick your tongue up your ass, UK pleb. Right, so I'm a pleb apparently. It's weird how he's replying to me, a pleb, but I never had to use his name to get him to come and tweet to me. It's almost like one of us is hungry for clout and engagement. And I could get loads by causing direct drama to him, but I haven't done that, have I? And then there's the whole thing of like, oh, will you as usual? So I usually just piss off for no reason when people ask me for this evidence that was never the standard I would be held to, and then stick my tongue up my arse. By the way, have you ever noticed how 100% of the angle is like the idea, it's either just like, you're a clown, or like, yeah, you're gay. It's like, bro, that's still the only go-to. I don't know about that, mate. I don't know about that one. Then, because obviously this guy is down the human centipede from Overdrive, who himself eats shit sometimes. Then you had Overdrive going, Richard Lewis is a fucking clown. So then this guy goes, according to Overdrive, you're a fucking clown. Can you confirm or deny that this is a real image of you asking for a friend? Well, obviously they've taken that milk one and made him look like a clown. Look who's reposted it at the top. Salty little harumi. Ah, yeah, Richard Lewis is a clown. If Richard Lewis is a clown, mate, what the fuck are you? Are you like one of those like fucking demon jester, fucking like multi-dimensional hyperspace machine elves that fucking Terence McKenna encountered when he broke through on fucking DMT into the fucking elf space? That must be the level of clownery you're on, mate. Like, fucking hell. Richard Lewis is like... By the way, you know Richard Lewis has won that Journalist of the Year award 3 times. If it had run every year of his career and you actually just gave it to the best person, not some political angle like giving Ashley Kang it one year, you know Richard would have like 10 of those motherfuckers. By the way, I'd have something like 10 or 15 or something. Richard would have 10 or more. He might even have one for every year he worked. Like, no joke. Beyond maybe the first couple of years where he was getting it together, he could have won like 13 of these things, 15 of these things. The idea is he got 3 and it's like, wow, it's incredible. Nah, it just shows how fucking full of shit the industry is. But do you want to know what's funny? I said this in my speech when I won. Back in the day, Turtle, the company that owned ESL, used to do awards and they wouldn't even give me and Richard a nomination. Never mind win, a nomination. Meanwhile, Carmack would do interviews where he asked players stuff like, do you wank before you play in the game? And he was winning Journalist of the Year and holding up like he was fucking messy with those fraudulent golden balls, that shit-eating grin like, yeah, I am the best. And then just went to work for ESL. Because that's esports for you. Now, even though this is just about leakers in general, I thought Harumi basically typifies the main problem with leakers. But obviously there is Overdrive, as I've alluded to. Now, what's lucky is Richard did a banger video where he just exposed Overdrive and even showed that with Overdrive's own words, like I did with Wooloo. He's just telling you he's not knowing what he's talking about, that sometimes he's full of shit, or that the information's wrong, or he doubts it, but then he pretends it's real and doubles down, and then he insults pro players. By the way, his is even worse. At least Harumi's just coming at me and arguing Apex. Fucking Overdrive is in like some massive battle with fucking Nico and Twists and Simple, and they're all going ham as fuck on him. Again, pro players will lie, but the way they're coming out, I can tell you, is quite earnest. They're not just doing it to provoke or to fuck with someone like they might with me. They're doing it in his case because he's just a guy just talking out his fucking arse, and he thinks that he knows everything. He's telling players themselves what is and isn't happening. So I think he is outrageous, but you can go look at Richard's video for that one. Now, what's sad about this is these people aren't even good at what they do. Like, the Harumi one has really exposed some of the worst methods for doing this. Like, you might think it is just like, oh, right, like I'll give the best method usually to get this info is obviously to have direct sources. But if you do that, you're a journalist. And at that point, you may as well just be a journalist, use standards, and get all the plaudits. So if you're not going to use journalistic methods, you can also sometimes get a direct source that's just incredibly loaded, like a disgruntled party who was bidding for a Cypher or a Jackson, and then they tell you when they don't get the deal and they know he's going somewhere else, oh, I've heard he's just going to that team though for this much. Sometimes you get info like that. That's not bad. I don't think Harumi's got that level of contact. Then also you have the agents of the players in question. Sometimes they're trying to push the deal, like they did with Wooloo, and use you as a pleb to push a story forward forwards or get public reaction and positive, like, buzz around a move happening that is still on the fence, hasn't been signed, or they're negotiating the price. There's that one as well. But after that, it gets really insane. Like, for example, a classic one in CS for real is because everyone just has everyone on Steam. You do stuff like you just either get the practice servers and refresh them and look and just see from the aliases and the fucking IDs who's playing in the practice server. Or when you have them as friends, you see like two of them are in the same game, like they're both playing a game that's losing 13 to 12 or whatever. You go, well, in the old max round 15, you go and see that, and then you just infer, right, they're playing a scrim together. Maybe he's going to join that team. That's it. And then from there, you either ask about a rumor or you just put it out in the world. And the last one is the maddest one. And I think Harumi's done this, quite frankly. If I look at some of the completely made up ones, but then I look who followed who on Twitter, I think some of them, no joke, he is just looking that a player follows a team org account on Twitter, and in his logic, like, oh shit, that means he's probably signed, and so they're going to announce him, and then he goes with the story. That's the level of not even just journalism, just basic fact checking or knowing what you're talking about that some of these fuckers seem to actually be on. What's mad is they take absolutely fucking nothing, a molehill, and make a mountain out of it, then try to take credit if just the molehill part's correct.
Hey, it's simple, you're watching Thorin channel. Shut the fuck up, you fucking bitch.
When I make content, it isn't just me, the mic, and a guest or a topic. It's also me with the support of my whole crew. Who's that, you might ask? The Skrilluminati. That's who. They include Frisky, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Tosh, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Animosity, Torin, and you know it if you've heard it before, but if you haven't, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Well, if you want to know upcoming topics and guests I'm going to have on my channel, maybe you want to ask me a question to answer in an AMA in video fashion. Do you want to hear one of those long discussions and actually be part of it and be able to ask me questions? Want to find out who I'm going to interview next? If any of these perks or more appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.